It was the dead of the blackened interstellar night when the Zelithar, a monstrous Greskin starship, sliced through the nebula's eerie fog, its jagged hull glinting in the light of distant stars. The Greskin crew bustled around their complex consoles, adjusting dials and grumbling in their harsh, chittering language. Captain Vorlith, a formidable figure with scales that shimmered a sickly green, stood at the helm, her fierce compound eyes focused on a faint blip appearing on their scanners. "A lone vessel," she hissed, her voice like nails scraping on metal. "Small. Primitive." Greskin soldiers chattered in laughter, relishing the idea of salvaging another useless human relic. Their encounters with humans were rare and always disappointing. The Greskin prided themselves on their physical power and technological prowess, viewing humans as frail, primitive, and naive. But the blip intrigued them. Abandoned ships held untold stories, and perhaps treasures worth claiming. Within minutes, a small human pod drifted into view, spinning aimlessly through the void. It was silent and damaged, no larger than a small escape pod, with scorch marks across its hull. The Greskin soldiers latched their claws around it and pried open its hatch, ready to sift through whatever useless junk lay inside. But inside was something they hadn't expected. There, in the cold, dim light of the pod, lay a human child no more than 8 years old, wrapped in a worn emergency blanket, unconscious and barely breathing. The Greskin soldiers reeled in surprise, peering at the small, fragile form in bafflement. "Is it alive?" hissed one of the guards, poking at Eli's still form with a long, sharp claw. Captain Vorlith narrowed her eyes, her lip curling back in disgust. She despised humans, with their soft bodies and helplessness. But curiosity stirred within her. What was a child doing alone in deep space, adrift in a forgotten pod? And how had it survived so far out, on the fringes of the galaxy where only the strongest endured? Vorlith ordered the child to be brought to the main observation deck, where she inspected him more closely. His breathing was shallow but steady, his small chest rising and falling under the tattered fabric of his blanket. Vorlith frowned, turning to her crew. "Weak," she snarled, her words thick with contempt. "This creature is feeble, unworthy of even existing among us. I wonder, would it show any fight if tested?" The soldiers laughed, their mandibles clacking together in anticipation. The Greskin valued only strength. Their society had no place for the weak or helpless. To them, strength was survival, and survival was the only law. "What shall we do with it?" a soldier asked, his gaze flicking between the sleeping child and his captain, eyes gleaming with cruelty. Captain Vorlith paused, her claws drumming thoughtfully on her armored thigh. "The Grizzly beast," she said slowly, a wicked grin spreading across her face. "Let this creature prove its worth in the arena. We shall see if even a spark of courage lives within its soft, useless form." The murmurs grew into a roaring cheer. The Grizzly beast was the most feared creature on board the Zelithar, a monstrous animal kept solely for testing the mettle of Greskin warriors. Captured from a perilous, uncharted world, it was unlike anything the child could imagine. No one who had been thrown into the arena had emerged alive. Its ferocity was legendary, and its thirst for blood had only grown in captivity. The child, however, remained blissfully unaware, locked in an exhausted sleep, his breathing even and undisturbed. He had no idea that his fate was being decided by alien creatures whose only wish was to watch him struggle and fail. To the Greskin, he was nothing more than an amusement, a delicate plaything to be discarded after a fleeting thrill. In her towering chair, Captain Vorlith watched the child with cold satisfaction. To her, this human represented everything she despised: vulnerability, innocence, and the potential to be preyed upon. She had no doubt that the child would be easy fodder for the Grizzly beast. There would be no mercy, no intervention. To the Greskin, survival was either earned or taken. Vorlith waved a dismissive claw. "Take him to the arena. Throw him in with the beast at dawn." The child was carried away, his small body limp as the soldiers dragged him down the echoing metal corridors. They left him in a holding cell just outside the grizzly beast's lair, his small figure dwarfed by the cold, metallic walls. The guards sneered, laughing among themselves as they anticipated the grisly spectacle they would soon witness. Unconscious, Eli dreamed of Earth. He saw his mother's gentle face and heard the soft lullabies she used to sing to him on quiet nights. He felt her warmth, as if she were holding him close, reassuring him in ways he couldn't yet understand. But even in his sleep, an unsettling coldness crept in. Something was wrong. As dawn approached, Eli stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Disoriented, he blinked at the strange, metallic walls and the towering Griskin guards standing watch. Fear tightened around him like a vice as he realized he was far from home, in the clutches of creatures beyond his comprehension. Where am I?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The guards laughed, their mocking voices echoing off the walls. One leaned down close, his slitted eyes glowing with cruel amusement. "You, little human, are about to meet the grizzly beast." And before Eli could even process the words, he was hauled to his feet and dragged down the corridor toward the arena, where an unimaginable test awaited him. The corridor was long, dimly lit, and cold as ice. Eli's small, bare feet stumbled across the metal floor as two Griskin guards hauled him forward, their grips harsh and unyielding. His mind raced with confusion and terror. He remembered being with his family, the gentle hum of their spaceship, and his mother's lullabies. Now, he was in a metal labyrinth surrounded by monsters, his heart pounding with a mix of terror and disbelief. Ahead, the metallic walls gave way to a large archway leading to the arena. A massive metal gate loomed at the entrance, rising high into the shadows. It was scarred with claw marks, evidence of battles fought and lost. Beyond it lay a space that made Eli's breath hitch, the lair of the grizzly beast. As they approached, Eli heard a sound that made his blood run cold, a deep, guttural growl reverberating from within. The sound was layered with menace, an unearthly roar that spoke of strength and hunger. The guards dragged him closer, stopping at the edge of the open arena gate. Above them, tiered platforms rose into the shadows, filled with Griskin spectators. Hundreds of eyes glinted in the darkness, watching eagerly, anticipating the spectacle. Captain Vorlith stood on the highest platform, her sharp, cold gaze fixed on the child. She leaned forward and raised one hand, signaling to the guards. "Let the trial begin," her voice echoed, filled with grim satisfaction. Before Eli could even protest, the guards shoved him forward, sending him stumbling into the middle of the vast, empty space. The heavy gate slammed shut behind him with a resounding clang, sealing him inside the arena. He was alone, and the Griskin warriors cheered, their hissing voices merging into a cacophony of mocking laughter and savage excitement. Across the arena, a second gate groaned as it began to rise. Eli's heart thundered as he watched the shadows shift, revealing a hulking silhouette. The grizzly beast emerged, its enormous form towering over Eli, fur bristling and muscles rippling beneath. Its eyes gleamed with an intelligent but brutal malice, like a predator that understood all too well the fragility of the creature before it. The grizzly beast was a nightmarish blend of power and ferocity, unlike anything Eli had ever seen. It had the frame of a monstrous bear, but its limbs were longer, more sinewy, with wicked claws that extended like blades. Its dark fur shimmered with an almost unnatural sheen, and its gaze pierced through Eli as though assessing every weakness in his small, trembling form. The creature let out a bone-rattling roar, causing Eli to stumble backward. He was cornered, trapped with no way out, and the only thing standing between him and death was a miracle he couldn't yet comprehend. But as the grizzly beast advanced, something strange happened. Instead of pouncing, it stopped just a few feet away, fixing him with a curious, almost wary gaze. It tilted its massive head, sniffing the air as if trying to understand what stood before it. Eli, too terrified to run, locked eyes with the creature, noticing a flicker of something gentle. It was a small, fragile spark, buried under layers of primal instinct, but it was there. The alien audience fell silent, confusion rippling through their ranks. Captain Vorlitha's expression darkened. She leaned forward, claws tapping in irritation. This was not the reaction she had anticipated. The beast should have struck by now, tearing the human child to shreds in a display of violence worthy of Greskin honor. But the grizzly beast didn't move. Instead, it stepped closer to Eli, huffing a curious breath that made the boy's hair stir. Its eyes softened, and Eli felt something shift inside him, a primal instinct, a memory from Earth. He remembered his father showing him how to approach animals in the forest, the calm he felt when coaxing a nervous deer closer with gentle words. And though it seemed absurd, he took a step forward, his small hand outstretched toward the massive creature. The Greskin warriors gasped in disbelief as the grizzly beast sniffed Eli's hand, its nose brushing against his palm. Then, to everyone's shock, it lowered its head, allowing him to rest his hand on its thick fur. Eli could hardly believe it, his fingers pressed against the warm, coarse fur of this terrifying creature, and yet he felt no fear, only a strange, inexplicable trust. Captain Vorlith seethed. She leaned over the platform's edge and hissed to her lieutenant, who stood nearby, his mandibles twitching in shock. "This is not a trial," she spat, venom lacing her words. "This is mockery. The beast has grown soft. Unleash the guards and force it to strike." The lieutenant hesitated, sensing the disquiet spreading among the crowd. They, too, were baffled by this unthinkable display of mercy, but they knew better than to question their captain. He signaled to a group of soldiers stationed near the arena, and they readied their weapons, long, spear-like rods that crackled with an electric charge designed to agitate and enrage the beast. Eli's heart pounded as he noticed the Greskin soldiers advancing, their spears aimed at the creature. The grizzly beast's muscles tensed, its eyes narrowing with a mix of anger and fear as the guards prodded it with electric jolts, forcing it into a frenzy. But instead of attacking Eli, the grizzly beast turned on its tormentors, snarling and swiping at the guards with its massive claws. A fierce, protective instinct had awakened within it, an urge to defend the fragile child it had, for reasons unknown, chosen not to harm. Eli stumbled back, watching in shock as the beast fought off the soldiers, defending him with a ferocity that sent the crowd into a frenzy of confusion and panic. Seeing the guards retreat, Eli did something that stunned even himself. He whispered to the beast, his voice steady despite the fear. "It's okay. Don't let them hurt you. We have to be brave." He didn't know if the grizzly beast could understand him, but it paused, looking back at him with something that felt like understanding. Then, with a final, savage swipe of its claws, it sent the last of the guards tumbling back, roaring a defiant challenge to the alien crowd watching from the shadows. The crowd fell silent. Shock and disbelief rippled through the ranks of the Greskin warriors as they witnessed the child and the beast standing together, united against their cruelty. Never before had such a display of defiance occurred within the walls of their sacred combat arena. Above, Captain Vorlitha's face twisted in fury. She leaned forward, her voice a seething whisper that barely reached her lieutenant's ears. "Prepare more guards. This insolence shall not stand. The human and the beast will perish together." But Eli, with a surge of determination he hadn't known he possessed, grasped the beast's fur, urging it toward the arena's exit gate. He didn't know where they were going or what lay ahead, but he knew they had to survive. Together, they would defy the odds and escape this ship of nightmares. As the two of them moved forward, defiant in the face of an audience that had wished for his death, Eli felt the weight of his own courage, and for the first time, he believed he might just make it through this alive. As the grizzly beast and Eli approached the arena's exit gate, they were met with resistance. Greskin soldiers surged forward, blocking the path with their menacing electric spears. Eli gripped the thick fur of the beast, his tiny fingers trembling but determined. Despite his terror, he felt a newfound resilience, a strange connection to this monstrous creature that had chosen, against all odds, to protect him. The beast let out a low, rumbling growl, warning the advancing guards. But the Griskin soldiers merely sneered, tightening their grips on their weapons, eager to see the boy and the beast finally fall. Sparks crackled along the edges of their spears, casting eerie shadows across the arena as the guards closed in. Eli took a deep breath, steadying his racing heart. "I don't know if you can understand me," he whispered to the beast, "but we have to fight together. We can get out of here if we stay strong." As if in response, the grizzly beast let out a defiant roar, echoing off the arena's metal walls. Then, in a swift, powerful motion, it charged forward, Eli clinging tightly to its back. The first guard thrust his spear, but the beast dodged with surprising agility, its massive claws slicing through the air and sending the weapon skittering across the floor. The Griskin spectators hissed in frustration, their eyes gleaming with anger and disbelief. They had come to witness a human child's quick demise, not this spectacle of defiance. From the highest platform, Captain Vorlith clenched her claws, her gaze simmering with rage. She shouted to her soldiers below, her voice a snarl. "Do not let them escape. They insult our honor with every breath they take." The soldiers pressed forward, circling the child and the beast, but Eli had learned from watching the grizzly beast's movements. With each charge from the guards, he tugged on the creature's fur, signaling it to dodge or turn. Slowly, they worked as a team, evading the soldiers' attacks with an almost unearthly synchronization. Eli's heart surged with hope as he realized they were driving the soldiers back. He watched the grizzly beast defend them with unyielding ferocity, and, in a moment of awe, he realized the creature wasn't just fighting for itself, it was fighting for him, too. He had never experienced a connection like this, and somehow, it gave him strength he hadn't known he possessed. The battle was fierce and chaotic, the air filled with the sounds of hissing spears and the beast's powerful roars. The Griskin soldiers were formidable, but they hadn't anticipated resistance from a human child and their own prized creature. They underestimated the will to survive that bound Eli and the grizzly beast together, a will forged in desperation and courage. Just when it seemed like they might break through, a powerful electric charge surged through the floor, sending both Eli and the beast reeling. The soldiers had activated a trap, a last-resort defense mechanism built into the arena. The electricity seared through Eli's limbs, leaving him momentarily paralyzed, and the grizzly beast staggered, letting out a pained growl. The trap had worked. The Griskin guards seized the opportunity, advancing with renewed confidence, their electric spears raised high. They circled the duo, blocking every possible escape route. Eli's heart pounded as he struggled to move, his body weak from the electric shock. He glanced at the beast, its sides heaving as it tried to shake off the effects. Captain Vorlith watched from above, her expression a mixture of triumph and satisfaction. "Now," she hissed to her lieutenant, "finish them both. Make an example of them." The guards closed in, their weapons raised for the final blow. But Eli, summoning every ounce of his fading strength, pulled himself up, placing a trembling hand on the grizzly beast's fur. "We can't give up," he whispered, more to himself than to the creature. "Please. One more time." As if hearing his plea, the grizzly beast let out a roar that shook the very foundation of the arena. With a surge of primal strength, it threw itself forward, slashing through the nearest guards, knocking them back with an unstoppable fury. The arena erupted in chaos, and Eli clung to the beast's fur, holding on as it created a path toward the arena's exit. Seeing the chaos unfold, a spark of doubt ignited in some of the Griskin spectators. They watched as the human child and the grizzly beast fought side by side, defying the ship's most ruthless soldiers. Whispers filled the stands as the spectators began to question their own beliefs, their rigid code of honor shaken by the courage and resilience of the unlikely pair. With the guards momentarily pushed back, Eli spotted a control panel near the arena's exit. Desperation and adrenaline surging through him, he slid off the grizzly beast's back and sprinted toward the panel. He had seen his parents operate similar devices on their research vessel, and, though his hands shook, he began pressing buttons, searching for anything that would open the gate. Captain Vorlitha's voice cut through the arena like a blade. "Stop him," she screeched, her eyes blazing with fury. But it was too late. With a final, decisive press, Eli activated the gate, and with a groaning hiss, it began to rise. He looked back at the grizzly beast, which stood protectively beside him, its eyes watching him with a fierce intelligence. "Let's go," he shouted, beckoning the creature forward. Together, they dashed through the gate, out of the arena and into the labyrinthine corridors of the ship. Alarms blared, red lights flashing as Greskin soldiers pursued them, their thunderous footsteps echoing through the metal corridors. Eli's heart raced, his lungs burning, but he kept moving, his mind focused only on escape. As they ran, the grizzly beast cleared a path, its powerful claws slashing through any soldiers who dared to stand in their way. Eli felt a strange sense of purpose, his fear eclipsed by a determination he hadn't known he possessed. They turned a corner and found themselves in a wide chamber filled with other creatures held in containment cells, aliens of every shape and size. Some had scales that shimmered like glass, others had eyes that glowed like embers. Each creature, trapped behind thick, reinforced glass, stared at Eli and the grizzly beast with a mixture of fear and curiosity. An idea sparked in Eli's mind. If they could free the other creatures, they could create enough chaos to escape the ship entirely. He approached the nearest control panel, his fingers moving swiftly as he input a series of commands. One by one, the containment cells opened, releasing the alien creatures who looked at him, bewildered but grateful for their freedom. The newly freed aliens joined in, creating a wave of resistance that swept through the ship, turning the Greskin vessel into a chaotic battleground. Some of the creatures attacked the guards directly, while others slipped into the corridors, fleeing in every direction. The grizzly beast stayed close to Eli, watching his back as he continued unlocking cells, each new release weakening the Greskin's grip on their own ship. Amid the chaos, Eli and the beast made their way toward the command center, a final goal now clear in his mind. Finally, they reached the main control deck. The room was empty, its massive viewports offering a breathtaking view of the stars. Eli ran to the central control panel, adrenaline and instinct guiding his fingers as he deactivated the ship's engine systems and shut down its gravity controls. The sudden loss of gravity sent objects and Greskin soldiers floating across the corridors, leaving the remaining guards disoriented and vulnerable. Eli clung to a railing, while the grizzly beast floated beside him, its claws gripping metal pipes for stability. He watched as the freed creatures scattered through the ship, some finding escape pods, others simply finding spaces to hide. The ship, now adrift and powerless, was a hollow echo of the mighty Greskin fortress it once had been. Captain Vorlith, realizing her ship was lost, stumbled into the command center, her claws scraping against the wall to keep her balance in the zero-gravity environment. Her eyes blazed with hatred as she locked onto Eli and the grizzly beast. "You little wretch," she spat, pushing off from the wall, her claws outstretched, ready to strike. But the grizzly beast intercepted her, meeting her in midair with a fierce, unrelenting strength. They grappled, Captain Vorlith thrashing and snapping, but the beast overpowered her, its protective fury unmatched. In one final, furious swipe, the grizzly beast sent her spinning back through the command center, defeated and humiliated. Eli, breathless and dazed, looked out at the stars, a vast, beautiful tapestry that now seemed full of possibilities. He clutched the grizzly beast's fur, his fingers gripping it with gratitude and awe. They had survived. Somehow, against all odds, they had survived. And as he looked into the vast unknown, with the grizzly beast by his side and a newfound courage in his heart, Eli realized that their journey was only just beginning. The Zelithar drifted in the endless expanse of space, a wounded titan torn apart from within. Lights flickered throughout the vessel as freed creatures roamed the halls, a chorus of unfamiliar alien sounds filling every corridor. Greskin soldiers floated aimlessly in zero gravity, scrambling for control amid the disorienting chaos, their once imposing presence reduced to panicked, helpless thrashing. Eli clung to the grizzly beast, the two of them anchored in the zero-gravity environment as they hovered in the command center, watching the aftermath of their defiant escape. The towering viewports displayed a breathtaking panorama of the galaxy beyond, an endless swirl of stars and colors Eli had only ever dreamed of seeing. Captain Vorlith, though battered and drifting, wasn't done yet. She regained her balance, her body hovering as she glared at Eli and the grizzly beast with venomous fury. Her twisted exoskeleton shone under the dim lights, giving her an eerie, malevolent glow. She gripped the console, pushing herself toward Eli, her claws bared and her eyes blazing with a determination that was as unyielding as it was terrifying. "You little parasite," she hissed, her voice laced with malice. "You think you can take my ship from me? You are nothing but a feeble creature pretending to be something more." Eli's heart raced, but he held his ground, instinctively shielding himself behind the grizzly beast. The creature growled, sensing the captain's threat, its protective stance unwavering. Eli's fingers tightened around the beast's fur, drawing strength from its steadfast presence. "Maybe I'm small," Eli shouted back, his voice trembling but defiant, "but I'm not alone. Not anymore. We're getting off this ship, and there's nothing you can do to stop us." Captain Vorlith let out a bitter, humorless laugh, her voice echoing through the command center. "You are a fool to think you can best me. The Grizz can do not lose. I will die before surrendering this ship to a human child." With a flick of her clawed hand, she activated a concealed override panel on the wall. A red light flickered, and suddenly, a timer appeared on the main console, counting down from 10 minutes. Eli's heart sank as he realized what it meant: a self-destruct sequence, the captain's final act of defiance. She would rather see the Zelithar destroyed than let it be overrun by inferior creatures. Panic surged through Eli. He barely understood the alien controls, let alone how to deactivate a ship-wide self-destruct sequence. But the grizzly beast nudged him, as if sensing his fear and encouraging him to focus. "We have to stop it," he whispered to the beast, glancing desperately at the controls. "There must be a way." Captain Vorlith grinned, satisfaction gleaming in her eyes as she drifted back, reveling in her victory. She looked down at Eli with a sneer. "Say your goodbyes, little human. You and your pet won't be leaving here alive." Ignoring her taunts, Eli scanned the console, his mind racing. The buttons and symbols were unfamiliar, a blur of alien shapes and colors. But he remembered watching his parents operate the control panels back on their research vessel. He took a deep breath, focusing on the rhythm they had taught him, the sequence they would use to navigate through complex menus. He pressed a series of buttons, hoping desperately for a miracle. The timer continued counting down, each second a relentless reminder of their dwindling time. Finally, he found a command screen displaying the words in the Greskin language he had only begun to recognize. It read "System Override." "This has to be it," Eli muttered, fingers trembling as he input commands. He pressed a final button, and the countdown paused at 3 minutes. Relief surged through him. But it was short-lived. The screen flashed with a warning in bold alien characters. "Override access denied?" Captain Vorlith cackled from across the room. "Only my biometrics can stop the countdown, human. Try all you like, you'll never override my command." Eli's mind raced as he looked back at the grizzly beast. There had to be another way. Then, an idea sparked, a plan so reckless that it seemed absurd, yet it was their only chance. He knew he needed Captain Vorlith's cooperation, but not willingly. If he could somehow get her close enough to the console, her touch would be the key to stopping the sequence. "Follow my lead," he whispered to the grizzly beast, hoping it would understand. Turning to face Captain Vorlith, Eli forced a mocking smile. "You're afraid, aren't you? Afraid that we're actually stronger than you. That's why you're running instead of fighting." Captain Vorlith's eyes flared with fury, her pride stung. She shoved herself off the wall, propelling toward Eli, her claws extended, ready to strike. I will show you strength, human. You will regret your insolence. As she approached, the grizzly beast lunged, intercepting her midair. They collided in a flurry of claws and growls, the beast's powerful limbs holding her back as she struggled against it. In the chaos, Eli pushed off from the console, grabbing a piece of broken metal pipe floating nearby. With a surge of adrenaline, he positioned himself by the console, waiting for the moment. Now, he shouted, signaling the grizzly beast. Understanding his intention, the beast shifted its hold, pushing Captain Vorlith directly toward Eli and the console. Eli raised the metal pipe defensively, and as Captain Vorlith swiped at him, her clawed hand struck the console. The screen flashed, and the words "Override accepted" appeared. The countdown vanished, replaced by a system shutdown message. Captain Vorlith's face twisted in rage and horror as she realized what she had just done. "No," she screeched, her voice breaking. "This cannot be. I am a captain of the Grescan. I will not be bested by a mere child." But her defiance crumbled under the reality of her defeat. With the self-destruct sequence disabled, the ship was now under Eli's control. He looked back at the grizzly beast, who stood beside him, breathing heavily but unwavering, its dark eyes meeting his with a mutual understanding. "It's over, Captain," Eli said, his voice steady. "Your strength didn't save you, only fear and cruelty." He turned to the control panel and initiated a ship-wide transmission, his voice echoing throughout the vessel. "To all those still aboard the Zelithar, this ship is no longer under Grescan control. Take this opportunity to escape if you can, because we're not staying." Aliens across the ship, inspired by the young human's defiance and emboldened by the grizzly beast's loyalty, took his message to heart. Many creatures had already found their way to escape pods, and others followed suit, abandoning the chaos-ridden vessel, their minds buzzing with tales of the human child and the creature who had brought a Grescan captain to her knees. Eli looked back at Captain Vorlith one last time. She floated in silence, defeated, her eyes empty of the fire that had once burned so fiercely. She watched as he turned to the grizzly beast, his expression one of quiet triumph. Together, they moved to the final escape pod, ready to leave the ship and the Grescan behind. As they boarded the pod, Eli keyed in the coordinates, his hands trembling with excitement and fear. The pod's engines roared to life, and through the viewport, he watched the once mighty Zelithar grow smaller against the backdrop of stars, a fading relic of a past he would never forget. Inside the pod, Eli finally allowed himself to breathe, his hand resting on the grizzly beast's fur. The creature lay beside him, its massive body taking up most of the space, but its presence brought him comfort. They were free from the ship, free from fear, and, in a way, free from the confines of who they had once been. Eli looked out at the stars, his heart swelling with the knowledge that he and his unlikely companion had survived, had fought together, and had won. He reached over, giving the grizzly beast a grateful pat. "Looks like it's just you and me now," he murmured, a smile spreading across his face. The beast huffed, its dark eyes softening as it leaned closer, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they shared. Eli didn't know where their journey would lead or what challenges lay ahead, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty: as long as they had each other, they could face anything the galaxy threw their way.